Hi, my name's Toya and I'm an educator at the Courtauld and also an illustrator and maker outside of that. I'm here to talk to you today about photographing and submitting your work for the Reworking Manet project. Hopefully you can find the details you need for submissions on the website, but I can talk to you a little bit more about that later. But first, I wanted to focus on photographing or documenting your work. If you've produced something under the size of A3, so I've got like an A4 painting here and it's 2D, so it's either a drawing or a painting that's not too textured, then I'd suggest the best way is always to scan that work. Your school or college should have a photocopier scanner that would go up to A3 size, and that way you just get a really nice flat image. That's often how I scan my work for then drawing into and stuff later digitally. But for you, I would suggest just scanning it, making sure if you can that you're selecting a high quality image setting or something, a resolution like 300 dpi would be good. But to be honest, for our purposes, if you're just scanning that in, whatever resolution should be fine for us. And make sure you keep, once you've scanned it, we've got the JPEG, that you keep your image safe in case we want to get it from you later for the exhibition. But we will be able to help with getting that sent to us and framing it if it's needed, so you don't need to worry about that. If, however, you've made a bigger piece of work or a piece of work that's maybe smaller but is textured. So this one it's not much bigger than A4, certainly under A3, but it's got lots of embroidery, so it's a textured surface and it wouldn't really fit or work well under the scanner. Then you'll want to think about photographing that instead. If you've got a digital camera, that's great, but you can also use the camera on your phone or a tablet. That will work fine too. Again, see if you can select a higher quality image setting, but any image setting should be fine for the submissions process.
You want to pick somewhere with lots of natural light, but if it's a sunny day, not right by the window where you get shadows, because this will obscure your image. So here I've found a spot with lots of natural light and a plain background, but no shadows. But I still need to be careful where I position my camera, because if it's not straight above, I get these angles which aren't at 90 degrees, so the image is distorted. So here I've made sure my camera is directly above my picture, and then I'm taking my photograph so it's as square as possible and true as possible to the original image. Now with this image, there's also lots of lovely texture, so it might be worth actually taking a detail at an angle just to show those textures so we can really see what your work's all about. But that's just an additional extra.
So the technique of photographing something flat on a tabletop or the floor will work well if your piece is quite small, but if you're getting to a bigger size piece, so this one's sort of A1, you might find it hard to be able to put it on the floor and get the camera high enough to be able to fit it all in. Try, but if it doesn't work, you'll want to think about putting it against a wall or something. Ideally, you'd be able to actually mount it on a nice white or plain coloured wall, and that should work well. But if you can't, then you can also just prop it up on the floor leaning against the surface.
I've tried propping it here, but because the light is coming from behind, it's really affected the colours in the picture. Also, there's a lot going on in the background which sort of distracts from the image. So here I've found a spot with lots of natural light, but the natural light is coming from behind me in the camera, which makes the colours on the picture look better. But again, I've got to be careful to try and line my camera up so that I don't get any funny angles. Here I'm a bit higher than the image, so again my angles are at 90 degrees. And now I've tried to line up my camera in line with the picture so that it's as flat as possible. There's a bit of bending at the sides, but I'm getting it more square and more like the picture itself.
If you don't have an image at all to photograph, but you've got a 3D a sculpture or something out of fabric that you've made that you need to photograph, then you'll also want to think about plain backgrounds and things like that. You might want to think about photographing it in a scenario. So maybe you want to photograph this in the grass or something with a nice scene behind. You can absolutely do that. But if you're doing it at home or at school, the same sort of techniques of a nice plain background and good lighting will apply.
Here I've used that same spot where I've got lots of natural light coming from behind me and not too much going on in the background. But if I've got a large piece of paper, I could try putting that behind it. So here I've just got 2 pieces of blue tack in the corner, and I'm putting that blue tack on the wall behind me, but not folding the paper, so it's producing this nice smooth curve. And then when I put my sculpture or my form back on it, I get no lines in the background like this. So I could just take my photograph like this, and it's a really nice plain background. But with an image like this, it might actually be worth playing with some artificial light, so perhaps a lamp, or here I'm using the torch on my phone to create some really interesting shadows on it before I take my photo. Just a thing to think about and try if you've got a more sculptural form. This actually works best if you start with a darker room, so maybe here I've shut the curtains, but you could also find a not very well lit corner to do it in, and then light with just a torch or the phone torch that I used.
So those are some tips for getting a digital file of an image of a painting or drawing you've made, or photographing a sculpture. But perhaps you've already got a digital file because you've made a video or a sound recording of some kind. Either way, once you've got your digital file, submitting it will all be through the same process.
If you go to the Reworking Manet page on the Courtauld website, you'll find the hyperlink for that in the description below the video. You'll find this page where right at the top there'll be a button to submit. You'll also find links to the toolkit, and on that page you'll find lots of information about the project if you still need help. But if not, there's also a submissions page that takes you straight back to that same page, which you can also reach by clicking through on the Ready to Submit button. And on that page you'll find the details. There's a stage 1 which involves filling out a form. You'll fill in your details here, click next. Hopefully it should be very straightforward. And once you've done that, stage 2 is to email your response to the email address listed. That allows you to email a small image file, but also if you need to use a large transfer system like WeTransfer for a film, you'll be able to do it like that too.
The most important thing is that we would really like to see your work, so we'd really like you to submit it. And if you can't get the perfect photo, it really doesn't matter. Send what you can, or if you need any help, please get in touch and we will try and help you.